That's the way to start every show.
Yeah. Hey-o.
Hopefully you're up early, people, and watching this. It's before 9.
Yeah, this is for our British friends.
We have those?
No. Live from your anti-ESG flag pin. I mean, aren't all flag pins really a dog whistle for being anti-ESG?
I think, well, depends on the flag.
Anti-woke, at least. It's a Business Pants Friday show, early one here at September 1st Studios, featuring all your favorites, well, some of them. Jesse the Money Whisperer, Analyst Hole, Matt Moscardi. On today's weekly wrap-up, the glass cliff breaks at Walgreens, carbon offset, and batteries, and more friggin' batteries.
Let's do this thing.
Story of the week. This is just like every August. There's not a lot going on.
It's a dead zone.
Yeah,
and somehow it was still managed to fill 63 minutes of showtime. I don't know how.
I don't have the energy for that today. I'm going to go relatively quickly. I have 5 stories. Story of the week. The late breaking story this morning. Walgreens CEO Roz Brewer is out.
Wow.
Glass cliff superhero Roz Brewer. But of course, we already basically semi-predicted a few months ago that this doesn't matter because the company is actually controlled by who?
Stefano Pessina.
Stefano Pessina, according to our data, controls 63% of our influence. So if you've been listening to us or look at our data, you would know that Roz Brewer is an absolute pawn, glass cliff pawn.
Yeah, this you would have known this was inevitable considering she had no control over anything.
And this is the short-term thinking of Stefano Pessina, who I guess because he's 81 years old would think short-term, right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
This is the first quarter that has missed Wall Street expectations since July 2020. The very first quarter they miss earnings, she's out after being on the job for only 2 years. But again, our data predicts this kind of nonsense because it is up to the whims of one old Italian dude.
So, Roz, I'm not a very good CEO. If you want to join Free Float, become the CEO. The pay is you take a significant pay cut, and there would be absolutely
it's a volunteer position.
It's basically a volunteer position, and there's absolutely no cachet that comes with it. I recommend join us.
Interim CEO will be lead independent director Ginger Graham.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, begging the question, will there be another woman?
Back-to-back glass cliffs.
I don't know. Looking at our data, Roz Brewer controlled 10% of the influence. Ginger Graham controlled 7% of the influence. So whatever.
Just
right?
going down. Yeah,
doesn't matter.
Just doesn't matter.
Second big story of the week. I guess this is big. Matt, you covered this. Vanguard joins BlackRock in backing fewer ESG proposals during 2023 proxy season. So they supported... That's right, audience. They supported 12% last year, which already seems low. And this year they supported only 2%. Just 2%. And I know, Matt, you looked into the data and you were right to do that because there's a big handful of technically anti-ESG proposals. But as we pointed out many times, Matt, those are still ESG proposals. So, and there's not enough of them that it really explains everything.
Okay, do we think Vanguard's going to vote yes for the proposal that wants to know about ideological discrimination or reverse racism?
Matt, I think they're going to vote no on everything.
They're going to vote no on everything. They always did.
But that's the point. That's the bigger point.
The percentage, this is a denominator problem, right? The denominator got bigger. And the percentage got smaller as a result.
But correct me if I'm wrong. If you remove those anti-ESG proposals, it's still
like 3.5%.
Still declining.
Yeah, it's still like declining. 3%. Although we're actually back to status quo. I think the real story here is not that they're like not backing as many proposals. It's literally that they're going back to 2019, where they didn't back any proposals to begin with. In 2020, the pandemic led to a spike in proposals that everyone backed.
People had the feelies.
Yeah, they were at home. They had nothing to do. Their bosses weren't looking over their shoulder. They were like, vote against.
They were worried
vote
about humanity.
for. Yeah, they were worried about dying. This is a nothing story.
I will say this is why it's not a nothing story from our perspective, Matt, is that I think kind of officially in the canon of our industry, all the anti-ESG idiots at Strive and National Center of Public Research, all those places, they're officially canonized now as ESG based.
That's true. I
their
like
proposals
that.
are
Wow.
ESG. You are now ESG.
I like that. Sorry, guys.
So you hate yourself.
You've tried so hard to be not ESG.
You're using the data in the same way we use the data. You are proving without a shadow of a doubt that this is an apolitical process. It is just data you're using.
I love everything you're saying. I love your words.
Next story of the week, which is just kind of for me only, really. Michael Bloomberg, at his company, he fired his entire board of directors. I just like this one because, again, it points out why our data is actually important, because what most regular ESG data providers provide does not always get the nuance that we get with influence, right? Like, because sometimes, like Elon Musk at Tesla, he only owns like 14% of shares.
Less now, I think. Yeah, because he just sells so much to buy Twitter.
But it's only our data that demonstrates his actual influence objectively, right?
But this is different because this is a private company owned by Michael Bloomberg.
But I just thought it was funny.
I do think it's funny though. Like, can you imagine like showing up to the board meeting and Bloomberg walks in and he's like, guys, we got to talk. You're all fired.
But this does demonstrate what we talk about all the time, is that when we roll our eyes at boards where there's really only one person in charge, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like Meta, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what Zuckerberg can do tomorrow.
He can do, of course. And who's gonna like say, no, I'm not leaving, Mark?
Can you imagine like the vote where
you don't have the authority? The board will vote.
Everyone should place their votes, and then they're all fired anyway. I think actually that would be, if Zuck wants to be a real baller, rather than doing a dick size measuring cage match with Elon Musk, Zuck should fire his entire board, and Elon can't, right? Because it's like he can at Twitter, but there is no board. So he can't do it at Tesla. To me, it would be really funny if Zuck was like, yeah, watch what real power looks like, douchebag. Fires his board.
Just for the fun of it, yeah.
Just for the fun.
The only known new director is Mark Carney. Remember Mark Carney?
I do, yeah. He's a climate evangelist.
There you go. Fourth story of the week is really just a follow-up, but I kind of had to add this. It's just too ridiculous. Remember the horrible Spanish soccer official who we talked about last week, who kissed his player on the lips. He also grabbed his crotch. He did all kinds of things. He apologized, said he was going to resign, but then he took it back. He's angry at everybody. The update on the story is that his mother is going on hunger strike. This is true. She has locked herself in a church and went on hunger strike to protest his treatment, saying she will not eat until what she called the inhumane and bloody persecution of her son ended.
Oh, okay.
I think this is a woman who doesn't maybe really understand the Me Too movement in general, maybe.
I think when your son grabs his crotch, maybe we know like where the apple fell from. Maybe she's at home grabbing her crotch and kissing men on the street. Like,
so you're blaming her for all this behavior.
Well, I mean, like, where do you learn stuff? I don't know. So...
and finally, a kind of a weird, quiet story. 6 months after becoming the CEO at Shell, Wael Sawan quietly ended the world's biggest corporate plan to develop carbon offsets.
This guy's something else.
So he had a $100 million a year project to build a pipeline of carbon credits, right? Part of the company's promise to have net zero by 2050. But in a meeting a few months ago, he has just dropped the proposal completely. It just doesn't exist anymore. It didn't even explain why it's gone. I mean, I think we can guess what Shell's doing here, but just this is like quiet quitting. This is like quiet net zero dropping, I guess.
Quiet net zero quitting. This is the same week that Exxon just said reaching climate goals is impossible.
Yeah.
So this is. If you're wondering what the anti-woke wanted, this is prong one, right? Like every
oil
anti-ESG
industry,
proposal
yes.
is
Yes.
like all the legislation is about protecting effectively the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
And if you're an oil and gas executive, now you feel pretty empowered by
Absolutely.
governments in the United States in particular to just be like,
governments.
go fuck yourself. We're not doing anything. We don't have to do anything. We're going to drill some more.
So those are the 5 stories of the week.
I don't like these stories.
I could recap them, but I don't feel like it.
It's
was
Roz Brewer steps down.
doozy.
Vanguard and BlackRock don't back ESG proposals. Bloomberg axes his entire board. Soccer official mom goes on hunger strike. And Shell quits carbon footprint or carbon credit program. I don't know, actually.
I think I'm gonna choose Roz Brewer.
Wow.
It is
Just
the
because
late-
we
Roz.
predicted it.
Late breaking
and
news.
Wow, Roz Brewer.
Yeah, I got to
came
look
true.
back. I wonder if we did predict this. I got to look back. We
You
make all
probably
these
did.
stupid predictions every week. And we don't actually do an auditing if anyone's ever right. Although I did do that for today's show about something I got right. But we'll get to that later.
I think I need to go with the Shell story.
The shell of a shell at Shell.
Yeah, look, because I think actually it by itself is not unexpected, but the long-term implications of it, this is like the beginning of a long arc of watching companies who are never that serious about climate or who have vested interest in destroying the climate effectively, just stop doing whatever they were doing. They just don't give a fuck. This is the beginning of that to me.
Is this the equivalent of the Vanguard story, I suppose? Right? Is
They're
this
kind of the
same
same-ish
trajectory?
thing,
Yeah.
right? Like where everybody can go back to like whatever version of status quo was 2017 and like not vote your proxies anymore except for what management says. We can ignore all the ESG stuff. We can stop with carbon credits and carbon offsets and reducing carbon. Who cares? Like nobody seems to care. We're going to...
Of course...
Meanwhile, we have like 2 raging hurricanes that just like are off the
Right.
coast of the Atlantic, like right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what planet they live on. A dead
Of course,
one.
when they proposed these programs to begin with, net zero by 2050, we rolled our eyes in the first place.
Yeah,
so maybe
that's
they're
what I
just
mean.
acknowledging the truth.
Yeah, it's. I think actually the story of the week is authenticity with like Shell and Vanguard and BlackRock all going true to form, and even Bloomberg. Like that's authentic. That's authentic dictator. Break the tie.
I'll just go with only because it kind of encapsulates a victory for our data. I'll agree with Jesse. Glasscliff CEO Roz Brewer out.
You
Stefano
guys can be wrong.
Pessina.
That's fine.
Stefano Pessina, the ruler, according to our. Hey, I'm proving you right, Matt. As the author of this great data, I'm proving you right.
Yeah,
Stefano Pessina is the dictator.
I'm long
over
term
at
right,
Walgreens.
but you're both wrong about the story of the
Okay.
week. Let's do goodliest of the week. In the absence of Ari, can I just say the goodliest of the week have not been as goodliest.
I haven't been complaining as
But
much
you-
though.
Yeah, I mean, Damien complains at all of her choices.
Always.
so-
Damien complains about all things.
That's true.
That's
it
true
doesn't-
too.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe that still hasn't registered for me yet. I'm like still trying.
Yeah,
to
when he
excite
like
him.
complains, you react like,
I
oh,
know.
something must be wrong.
Yeah, I tried to explain to you. It's just a language. It's just a It's not. That's not always.
It's a love
I'm a
language.
based
people
in reality.
pleaser, though.
Yeah.
all right,
So-
what's Damien? Yours
I'll go
is first.
And Matt, you actually pick up on this story later in the show, so I'm not going to spend a lot here. But I actually saw the good side of this is that a renewable energy battery plant is being built in West Virginia, where there was once a steel mill.
Yeah.
A $760 million project that will create 750 jobs, part of Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know how to, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this later, Matt. But to me, from the highlights, this just seems
Yeah,
friggin'
this is
awesome.
Optically nice, and I hate
Optically
it.
amazing.
So
Good game.
This is
Although I don't know where you're going with yours, Matt, but it does. The one thing that rings out to me is that all the states that seem to hate everything ESG seem to get funneled the ESG projects. But I'm guessing because they're so horrible to their labor, that it is very cheap to do these things in those states. Is my guess.
This is all the game. This is the con game, the great con. All right, you have your second one. I don't even want to. I'm not even going to wait on this one. Go ahead, go to the next one.
Mine is also a battery story, and it's that.
Oh.
No, it's good. It's that Nissan is reusing the batteries from old Leaf EVs to make portable power sources that can be used in the event of natural disasters. Or, I mean, they can be used
What are you
anywhere.
charging with that? What are you charging with that portable battery? Like a little one of those little fans that you put on your neck?
It didn't go into that, Damien. Okay. You're being negative already.
No, I like it.
But here's the thing. This associate professor that was quoted in the article said that once an EV battery reaches 80%, declines the efficacy to 80%, it can't be used to drive an EV.
Is that right?
Yes,
only to 80%?
Yes.
So I should throw my laptop out the window that you gave me.
There it is.
I've been
14%. I've been waiting.
You know, coming. Complaining about the free
so
laptop.
They still have a ton
that
of
charge
life
does
in
last about as long as a Bud Light commercial, so I appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead.
Whatever. So there's a ton of life left. This is good. Otherwise, they're just making these batteries that we know there's a lot of resources, precious resources that go into them. The EV makers get a lot of flack for the batteries. Otherwise, they'd just be throwing them out.
Yeah.
So
I like it. I like
this story, but my story's better. And that is Walgreens' Roz Brewer steps down after more than 2 years in the role.
What?
Who
Why?
is that good for?
This is good for
Stefano?
her.
It's not
This
good
is
for her.
fantastic
For her sanity,
Roz.
really. Yeah.
Roz must have woken up the day she knew she was going to have to announce they missed earnings. And missed earnings doesn't mean they lost money. It just means they missed analyst target earnings.
Targets.
Like Target's earnings, right?
Yeah.
And that
which
could
are
be
made
for
up in
any
the first
number of
place.
reasons. But she must have woken up and Stefano Pacino was probably calling her being like, Roz, what are we doing about this? And she was like, you know what? Fuck this. I am out of here. And she had 10% influence. Pacino had 63% influence. And he's married to an executive at Walgreens. At some point, after 2 years of dealing with that bullshit, she must have been like, I'm dodging a bullet by getting out right now. And my advice is this. Write this down, people. You writing? You got a pen?
Yeah.
Don't be the CEO under a dictator, particularly if you're a lady. If you it just seems
good
like
advice.
what keeps happening is the Linda Yaccarino, the Roz Brewer. It is the man who's the executive chair, has all the power. This actually happens in private markets all the time. The founder becomes the executive chair, does none of the work, none of the dirty work of managing day to day. And some woman is the CEO who does whatever that guy says because that guy has all the money, the power, the shares, is a founder, whatever. So it's Jeff Bezos is this now, except that he's got Andy Jassy instead of a woman. This is so common.
Let me ask this question. Why not fire COO Ornella Barra?
Isn't that who he's
right. That's
to?
his wife. That's Stefano Pacino's wife. Right. The COO at Walgreens, of course, is his wife. Right.
That's
there
right.
You go.
So
Maybe
imagine
that's why
being
she didn't
Roz
take the
Brewer.
fall for this.
How could it not be goodliest of the week for Roz Brewer? The minute she hands in her resignation to Pacino and the board, she must have gone home and smoked the largest joint or had a giant glass of wine and been thank God this is over. This is done.
To really talk about how crazy this is that the only reason why there's any dip at Walgreens is because of a post-COVID dip.
Yeah,
right.
People don't.
So it's
need
nothing
tests.
she's responsible for. Not to mention that I hope they do hire another woman in the sense that someone's about to get credit because COVID seems to be trickling back, and I bet you CVS and Walgreens are going to see a bit of a surge because of all the booster shots. And I hope there's at least another woman in place to take credit for that.
I'm hoping it's the COO who's proven she's done an excellent job.
Well, it does beg the question. I mean, Ornella Barra has been there for so much longer. Why not blame her? I mean, really, seriously.
Because you have to go home with her.
I know.
Also,
All right,
to be fair, I just looked up Roz Brewer's compensation. And she okay, she didn't really have to do much, right? Because she doesn't have
Yeah.
influence and she's not making this. She made $17.29 million.
Yeah, still less than
She's
the
fine.
CVS guy.
I mean, that's
She's
kind of
Roz.
sweet for her. She's there
Roz,
for 2 years.
You handed it. You stepped down. My guess is they probably paid out your existing options because they wanted you to step down anyway. That means you have plenty of money and you don't need to get paid for a little while. I'm telling you, Free Float LLC. It's where the action's at. So that's my goodliest. That means the goodliest are.
Vote.
Yeah, go ahead.
Renewable energy plant in West Virginia. Nissan is reusing its batteries from electric vehicles, and bizarrely for Matt, Walgreens CEO Roz Brewer is free.
No,
I guess
it's-
is what you're trying to say.
I mean, it's just so good that she's free.
yeah, I don't know how that's. Yeah, anyone want to go?
Well, I'm definitely not going with a renewable energy battery plant.
Well, I don't think I can go for that either because it's on Matt's docket and I can't
Okay.
in good conscience vote for it here until I know what he's about to say about
That's
it.
right.
So I got to vote for my own. That's kind of tacky,
Oh,
but I'm voting
is
for
tacky.
Nissan.
Well, I'm going to make it not even a thing because I'm going to vote for Nissan also.
All right, good. Clean sleep.
There
let's,
you
let's
go.
move on. Nobody cares.
All right.
Come on.
Nobody cares.
He doesn't want to vote for
Let's do
goodliness.
asshole.
Oh, well, there's too many battery stories. I mean, great. There's another battery. Yay. We win.
Battery tech. Is
We did it. We found a battery.
All right, assholiest of the week. I have 4, but really 3. My first asshole of the week is this story. A renewable energy battery plant will rise in West
this one
Virginia
before,
where a
yeah.
steel mill once stood. Okay, Damien, you already said it. This is the state where Joe Manchin fought
Yeah.
against his own climate proposal, used fighting against his climate proposal as a ploy to get his own shit in the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act is paying for this renewable plant in the state. It's the subsidies from that act
Crazy.
that are largely paying for it. West Virginia, in March of this year, signed a bill into law banning ESG from state retirement, claiming, this is a quote from the law, environmental, social, corporate governance, or similarly oriented considerations are not pecuniary factors. Now, pecuniary means financially material, which means they said governance, corporate governance, is not a pecuniary factor. West Virginia actually should justify every time they vote for any to elect a director. That's governance. They now shouldn't do that at all. They can't use any factors. We will not be selling free float analytics data to West Virginia.
But you're
apparently.
taking them seriously. You know, it's just game. They're just gameplay. That quote is just gamemanship.
But I'm saying that this is the fucking con game of the anti-woke, right? The state is benefiting from renewable jobs, and they are simultaneously out there talking about how, you know, we need to protect our coal jobs and we got to do like, it's such fucking bullshit. It drives me bananas. They're such assholes because they know the money is in this stuff, renewables, reducing carbon. They know it has to happen. And yet they sell everyone on the idea that ESG is bad and renewables are bad. Fighting climate change is bad. So this story actually made me think West Virginia are the assholes of the week, not
All of West Virginia.
I mean, basically.
How is this spun exactly? How is a renewable energy battery plant?
Have you
spun
seen
to
the
to
story-
the people that they're telling are, you know, that everything is a hoax and
The battery
ESG
plant
is
isn't
bad.
spun, right? But using like solar panels, for instance, companies have been going and buying farmland and replacing the farmland with solar panels and basically paying the farmers to lease the land to create energy because there's plenty of sun. And what the right has been saying, the far conservatives in this country has been saying is you're actually killing the property value and biodiversity. That's their argument for not doing solar panels. It's the most fucking asinine thing considering they don't care about biodiversity or, you know,
'Cause they're
like
probably
anywhere
monocropping.
else. It's all bullshit. It's all just we don't want solar panels because we're not prepared. Basically, it seems like the conservative anti-woke effort is the same as Elon Musk saying we need to put a pause on AI while he builds his AI business. It's now been widely reported that Elon Musk put out a letter saying everyone should pause AI while he was investing in a startup to create his own AI. This is every con artist, conservative state in this country saying ESG is bad, renewables are bad, we need to protect our own energy, we need to drill. And at the same time, they're just building their renewable capacity. They're putting in solar. The biggest renewable energy generator in the country is Texas. That's the biggest. And they have a law about discriminating against fossil fuels. I'm sorry, it's fucking bullshit.
I spared the audience. There's so many juicy, ridiculous, horrible Elon Musk stories today I spared the audience. I think I might cover them on Monday because again, they do sort of respond to our data very well, which is this is what happens when you put a dictator in place. Because the craziest story is being about his acquisition of Twitter and how really, as we kind of all knew, but all of it was just based on his petulance.
Yeah,
everything.
Well, obviously, but that's everything now.
But you got a workforce at a company that is one of the most beloved companies in the world. Really, you got its workforce because of one big man who bought it. They say, according to this new book, because he was upset about his daughter transitioning, and he wanted to save his children from the world.
Wokies.
Yeah. So anyway.
Imagine how much self-loathing it takes. All right, that's number one. West Virginia. And
number two, asshole of the week.
Number two, asshole of the week. Tariq Fancy.
Wait, how come Tariq Fancy's never been on our show? Have you ever invited him?
I've tried to connect with him. I think he has no interest. We were both the same year at Brown. I didn't know him, but
he talks a lot. Why doesn't he talk with us?
Tariq Fancy was the head of sustainable investment or something at BlackRock for 1 year and 9 months.
Nice.
But he came out and not whistle blew, but he basically was like an insider at BlackRock who was saying that like ESG is bullshit. Like BlackRock's using it as bullshit. He said what everybody inside ESG already knew, but it became a big story because he's from BlackRock and BlackRock had Larry Fink talking about ESG and he was saying like, no, that's all shit. But this is why I'm tired of hearing this blowhard because he had less than 2 years of experience in a job that had the word sustainable in it. Every other job he had was a turnaround specialist at a private equity fund, like basically distressed debt and bankrupt companies. He was an intern at Merrill Lynch. He was an investment banking analyst at Credit Suisse. He worked at a Singapore-based social media marketing company. He goes on to be the head of sustainable investment at BlackRock for 1 year and 9 months, and now gets to say, these are the headlines I saw. It's time to dismantle this circus. ESG has served its purpose, says BlackRock's Tariq Fancy and DWS's Desiree Flixler. Former BlackRock exec Tariq Fancy. Many ESG experts are underqualified. Really?
Well, how do you define many?
Really? Unless he's self-deprecatingly including himself as underqualified for the job that he had, there's no way that these people have seen the literally thousands of data points that you and I, and not Jesse, but you and I for sure, hand collected over 10 years in pursuit of transparency.
Wait, but is part of his whole story, Tariq Fancy, that because they hired him, it must be a scam? Because he has absolutely no qualifications.
He did not say that as the broader context.
But
of
is that the takeaway here? But really, we're just talking about BlackRock, who seemingly appointed someone to head something that they had no experience in. Is that really the main impetus for this?
No, I think he's talking about like the broader ESG ecosystem and how,
according to his notes. According to his thorough analysis, that ESG is full of many idiots,
full of underqualified people, right? And I'm tired of hearing from a blowhard who basically has never seen a data point. And he spent 1 year doing this. What the fuck do you accomplish in 1 year? So
1 year, 9 months.
So he got me really angry. At number 3, assholes of the week. Jeff Owen and Todd Vasos. These are Dollar General's CEO and ex-CEO who's still on the board. Now, this story that I saw wasn't the biggest deal of the week. It's Dollar General's messy stores are haunting the retailer as it takes a $95 million hit on inventory markdowns and deploys smart teams to clean up. Basically, their stores are messy and full of shit. They said that they are taking old inventory that they had marked down to a penny and just throwing it all away, which is great. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's throw it in a landfill. They are so messy that they're blocking fire exits. They've been cited for blocking exits with inventory. And it's such a disaster in some stores. They have rat infestations. They had to close the store in upstate New York because they found rat feces and a dead rat in boxes, and it's like everywhere, right? But the reason why I picked these two is because it proves our point, which is your management team might actually matter if you don't pay attention to whether or not they suck. Dollar General managed to squeeze a whopping 2 women, 25% of their board is women, 8-person board, and 2 people of color, 25% of their board, one of them being a twofer, a black woman. So obviously, we're really only talking about 3 people. Right. And they have 37% representation on the board and 19% influence. The median employee there makes $17,000 a year. The CEO makes that in 4 hours. The CEO makes more than 900 times the median employee. And the committee that approves pay discloses no interlocks, but our data shows that the board is 30% interconnected inside 2 phone calls. Todd Vasos was the CEO. He basically Igered himself. He's the largest shareholder that's not institutional. And he sits on the board with his own CFO, who's now the CEO, Jeff Owens. And the 2 of them control 40% of the board influence together. Do we expect that this company is going to be well run, that they're not going to take $95 million hits because they can't actually put boxes away when a couple of bros who known each other for years sit on the board together, that there's no one to challenge them, they have all of the influence, and they pay themselves like they're selling fucking like AI based, widgets, when really what they sell is penny plastic, rubber chickens. What are we talking about here?
Speaking of Dollar General, just yesterday, the author of the report, Executive Excess 2023, she's out of the Institute for Policy Studies, Sarah Anderson. She has a report about the low wage 100, they're calling it, where this is the out of the S&P 500, these are the companies with the lowest median worker pay, the low wage 100. She has a new paper out about the CEO worker pay gap there, 603 to 1. She also talks about how the low wage 100 has spent more than $340 billion on stock buybacks since 2020, but she has agreed to come on the show. So look for her in the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to talk to her.
Tease. I like a good tease.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So,
but Dollar General being the
one of the low wage
100.
They're one of the worst. Mm-hmm. So that's my third option. And my fourth option is really just this headline, which I just couldn't believe is a real headline. But female professors sue Vassar College
former women's college
alleging gender-based salary discrimination. Vassar College. If you don't know who Vassar is in this country, they were in the 60s, they were one of the earliest women's colleges or women's focused colleges in the country. And they're known as one of the Seven Sisters. Seven Sisters is 7? I think it's 7 Sisters, which are colleges that previously were female-only colleges. And and they're one of the most progressive, most liberal colleges in the entire country. Are they? Well, the good news for the female professors suing is that they peg in the lawsuit the pay gap is 10% less than their male cohorts, where the rest of the world has 20% less. So that's progressive. That's like women usually get 80 cents on the dollar. They're getting 90 cents on the dollar. So that's progress. So those are my 4-ish stories. West Virginia.
That's more exhausting as that last one.
Tariq Fancy, the Dollar General management team, and I won't even count really the last one, but you can if you want.
You got a feeling on this one, Jesse? I can go first.
Yeah, you go first.
I gotta go with Tariq Fancy, and I want Tariq to actually come on the show, but I do tire of this age we live in, where you can get headlines, you can get a lot of attention and acclaim by just making shit up. I mean, it's one thing. I know we always sound like a-holes around here, but one thing we try not to do is to not have this be research-based a-holery, right? We actually look into the things we say.
We do a lot of research.
But Tariq, to just go around saying that you just think that people are underqualified without any objective data or research, it just makes you look like an idiot and a jerk and a blowhard. But still, I want you to come on the show and talk about it.
We can. I would like. The funny thing is, I think a lot of the ESG experts are blowhards, right? Like, I don't actually totally.
A lot of the world are blowhards, man.
Disagree with him. But it's coming from a blowhard without like the self-realization of like, I am among them. Stop asking me questions.
But Matt, we can't. But we're entering this like the new age of like fun mansplaining meritocracy,
That's
right?
my
Where the
problem
Vivics
with
and
it.
the Tariqs come out and they have in their head, kind of like George Costanza and Larry David of Curb Your Enthusiasm. They have this idea of what they think is right. What they think is the proper merit to accomplish a goal, but they don't, of course, share that. They don't share the Rubicon of what makes you qualified for something. They just determine and decide and announce in front of huge audiences that women and black people could not be not
I mean, right? That's not what Tariq said.
They don't measure up to their idea of merit.
That's what Vivek says, yeah.
But that's what Tariq is saying too, because as we know, the ESG industry is full of essentially women, really, compared to other financial sectors, right?
There are a lot of women.
Part of it, though.
But
anyway, it makes me crazy.
He does make me crazy. But go ahead.
You guys have swayed me. I'm gonna vote for him.
Wow!
Too now.
I like a sway. I like a sway.
Wow, that's a sweep. We haven't had a sweep in a while.
We have a lot of sweeps. I think because we just want to wrap this up.
Let's get this on. Going on to what are we on? Exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My segment.
Oh no!
I'm gonna have some coffee for this one, Jesse.
I'm gonna speed through it. These are pretty obvious this week. So my first one has to do with carbon offsets that are still not as effective as cutting your carbon emissions. There was a systematic evaluation of 26 carbon offset projects.
See? A systematic evaluation. See, I like this, Jesse. I like
Six
that
countries,
type of evaluation.
3 continents. They're looking at these offset projects that, huge companies, Delta, JetBlue, Disney, GM, are all contributing to. And obviously they found that the vast majority of the projects, these were particularly around deforestation. They didn't actually slow it. And they were significantly, even those that did claim that they were effective, they were significantly less effective than the claims made it seem. Obviously. So the study's lead author said the main message is that relying on carbon offset certification is not enough. He also said if you rely on it 100%, you probably will not do anything positive in terms of mitigating climate change. Which we know, but here's yet another study.
Kick.
Not to mention, Jesse, the ESG industry, the ESG field is relatively new in the first place. So, Tariq, where were these people supposed to get qualified? When? They're supposed to go to Princeton in 1919 to get qualified. How is one supposed to get qualified for something that's new in the first place? Really, right? I mean, really, he's basically striking down all innovation, striking down anything new, anything modern, right? Because again, how are you supposed to get qualified for something that's new?
I want to reel you back into carbon offsets.
He's multitasking. He's reading the Tariq story and he's angry about the Tariq story. That's what's happening.
So that's
I just want to know where they're supposed to be qualified.
That is just ignoring me completely. All right. Next, fossil fuel subsidies surged to a record $7 trillion.
Oh, Jesus.
That doesn't seem like a lot. Is that a lot? $7 trillion?
It's up by $2 trillion.
Oh my
God. From
God.
the past 2 years. So yeah, that seems significant.
$7 trillion.
It's more than the globe, the entire world spends on education. And
this hurts, Jesse. Okay. This hurts.
All right. Well, we know that in large part it's due to the war in Russia. Everybody was subsidized. So they say. So subsidies so that the rest of the world could access the energy they needed. But we are living in a climate crisis. So I just can't help but think that if we diverted one of these trillion...
No, look, Vivek just came out and said,
I don't
think
care
on,
about
C-
Vivek.
on CNN, he just said on CNN that climate scientists are predicting that there is going to be another ice age. So how can it be warming if there's an ice age? That's what he said on CNN. He said it's a hoax.
The facts. Where is he getting that
Well,
from? The Farmer's Almanac?
The facts are climate change will cause the polar ice caps to melt, which will lead to another ice age. It's basically like they sort of...
None of those things seem good.
Basically, we're all fucked.
I
is the
just
fact.
can't help but think, like, you know, if we diverted even a fraction of that to renewable energy, that could have helped.
Why even divert it to renewable energy? Why not just feed humans?
Yeah.
You
Not to
could
mention-
do a lot with
that.
7 trillion.
Could do that.
Not to mention, I mean, I'm not a warmonger, but okay, the fossil fuel subsidies rose by $2 trillion. They're attributing that to the war, right? That's what you're saying, Jesse?
Yeah.
Why not just take $1 trillion of that dollar, save $1 trillion, and just get rid of Putin? Just go end the war. I don't
feel
know.
like $1 trillion would get rid of. What if you?
But do you realize this war is
That would
still
be hard
going
for
on?
him
I know.
to compete with,
This
yeah.
this war, like nobody. I know there was a bunch of hand wringing at first. There was a bunch of support, and people hung up some like blue and yellow things or whatever. But nobody has done anything to stop it. It obviously is good business for somebody, so they're keeping it going. I don't. We're
mean,
subsidizing the war.
I know
and
it's
the
not good
fossil
business for
fuel.
Ukraine. That one I
That's
know.
the
'cause
only
the entire
people.
country's
It's
been
the only
leveled
people it's
for the
not,
most
yeah.
part.
But for everyone else, it seems pretty great.
But
I mean, to be fair.
if you took $1 trillion of that subsidies and actually gave it to Putin and made him sign a contract that said he would just live in Antarctica for the rest of his days with $1 trillion, he might take that deal. You might end the war with no more bloodshed and save another $1 trillion. That seems valuable.
and the joke can be on him. We can build him a mansion on an island, and then we can cancel his DoorDash subscription so he can't get any food.
DoorDash does islands now?
All right.
What else, Jesse? I'm
All right.
definitely exhausted.
This last one I had to point out because I have to promote us.
Yeah,
The headline
that's
is
correct.
Investors warn fluffy ESG metrics are
Here we go
being
again.
gamed
Yeah,
to
another
boost
dog whistle.
bonuses.
Fluffy. Fluffy. What does that even mean? Fluffy. Yeah, go ahead.
So 3/4 of the S&P 500 companies have disclosed that ESG metrics contribute to executive pay. It's up from 2/3, which sounds good, of course. But asset managers, specifically, they quoted this guy, Ben Colton, who's head of stewardship at State Street.
Oh, Ben.
Right.
He said oftentimes they're very subjective, fluffy, and easily gamed. But here's where we come in. We
Yes.
are about to have data on NEOs, and we already have it on directors. You could just use it, and then it won't be fluffy. It'll be like
Yes.
actual performance metrics
like that, Jesse.
based on data.
You should
What
you
a
should cold call
concept.
and sell
Ben
that
Colton.
based on that message.
Yeah, I should see. I used to audit State Street. Maybe someone can put me in touch with Ben Colton.
I think I am
Here's
in
where
touch
I'm-
with Ben Colton, actually.
Here's where
Well-
I'm super confused, and you can ask Ben Colton, Matt, is that for the longest time, we were pushing for publicly traded corporations to have ESG metrics in their pay plans, and now they're fluffy?
Well, here's the thing. He's not wrong because the metrics are
But he's not
subjective.
completely right.
Well, you
Subjective.
take-
Well, wait.
You take carbon offsets.
And
you're like, oh.
the basically they're setting up targets that are used like vague sort of indicators and are easy to get. But two things are
but
true.
But they represent like probably 1%
That's
of the
the
total
first
pay
thing that's
package.
true.
It's
That's-
the equity
that's
that is going
100%
crazy.
right.
It's the equity is the problem.
So
it's not these metrics.
The first thing that's true is it literally represents like 1% of their pay. Like
They're ruining
in
the narrative.
Highest, the,
Yeah.
the highest cases, it's like 5% of their pay. So we're talking about very, very little pay to these executives. And
Nothing.
thing number two, when I was at MSCI at the mothership, I did a study of how companies choose their peer groups for
Yeah.
traditional executive pay. And it turns out it's fluffy. Like they just go to
yes.
they go to a fucking
It's
consultant.
the pay plan itself that's fluffy.
The
It's not the
whole
ESG
thing is
metrics.
fluffy. Everything
Well,
they choose is a giant
Yeah.
fluff ball.
This is
This is
why
what-
I had to choose this. I knew
but
that.
this is why I'm
I
angry.
knew it would heat you guys up. What?
This is why I'm angry at
You
Ben
got
Colton
us
because
caffeinated.
Well, yeah, but you're completely like redirecting the narrative here. You're creating like, this is like fodder for the Viveks and for the Tariq Fancies and the anti ESG, because you're making it seem like it is the fluffy ESG metrics that's making these payouts massive. But where we all know in the United States, the number one and only problem with these pay packages, and as Matt you point out over and over and over, is that they're designed by other CEOs, first of all. And second of all, it's all equity. It's just a dump of equity. No one knows why it's so much equity. No one understands it. That's why these packages. So it's not has nothing to do.
And
with
do you
ESG
think?
Metrics,
let me ask you something. Do you think what percentage? I mean, and this is just a dumb guess, right? What percentage? I don't think anyone tracks all of the percentage, like in most of these disclosures, they give you like the percentage targets, right? Like if you hit your target, you get 50, this percent. If you like you go over your target, you get this percent. So your max percentage payout. Now those numbers don't get tracked anywhere. They're make-believe numbers. They're fictitious numbers. A couple of people sit in a room and they make them up, literally make them up, right?
Yeah.
How many times do you think they set those percentages in such a way? Now remember, this is a compensation committee that the management team generally handpicks. What percentage of the time does that team say, we need to set some really stringent bars here? We need to make sure that the targets, you're really achieving something.
Maybe if it's a glass cliff woman in power, maybe they'll do that.
That's actually, you say that, but that's when they are serious. They're most serious when it's a woman or a person of color who we know get paid less. Their bars are always higher.
Yeah.
And they're make-believe fucking bars. And then they set the targets in such a way that they know that they're achievable. And even when they don't achieve them, you end up with something like we covered last week with Dick's Sporting Goods, where they wait until the stock price, like it's like you missed all your targets. Like, we're going to pay you nothing this year, but don't worry. We're going to change your equity plan while the stock is low. So you get a massive payout 7 years from now or 4 years from now or whenever it vests, right?
Again, based on Ben quoting you here on fluffy thought process.
Fucking fluffy.
And not to mention, Matt, that those targets and goals that you talk about, they kind of shift year to year for no apparent reason. They're easier to game every year. And again, it's because of the fluff in between the ears of the compensation committee. Has nothing to do with ESG metrics.
So do they.
State Street.
But all these committees, they hire consultants to come in and pick the peer groups and like help set the compensation. And who pays the consultant?
I was going to say, I guarantee the money.
The consultant.
I guarantee the money paid to those consultants is way more than the percentage that they're getting from ESG metrics. In the
yes,
CEO.
correct.
Oh, really?
Correct.
Yeah.
This is all a fucking joke. And Ben,
I'm upset about this one because I like rely on State Street to be like the adult in the room. I don't like the Vanguards and the BlackRocks, but this to me is just nonsense.
I don't know if Ben
nonsense.
said more about this. I don't know Ben personally. I'm connected to Ben. I'll reach out to Ben and see if he wants to talk about this.
I'd love to talk to him about this.
Because my guess is he would agree with us entirely.
And how about this? One more thing to say here, and you know what I'm voting for here. But one more thing, Jesse, is that on top of it all, shareholders can vote on these pay packages, and yet they're non-binding. So you can actually vote against fluffy ESG metrics, say no, but the company does not have to listen.
And what
to
percentage
what you say.
of the time do they vote against pay?
Well, now it's even more because your anti-ESG firms like Strive Asset Management are voting against any pay plan that mentions anything to do with ESG or DEI at all.
Yeah, just remember, in ESG is governance. So if your pay plan mentions G, that's a problem already. But it also, what is the function of a CEO? It is to manage the workforce of the company and make them productive. But if you mention the workforce, that's S of ESG. So you can't do that. So
you're welcome.
All right. So we got three exhausting as carbon offsets not effective, fossil fuel subsidies surged to $7 trillion, and fluffy ESG metrics being gamed to boost bonuses. I'm going first because it's the fluffy ESG metrics to me. It's like the fossil fuel subsidies. jumping is not a surprise given what's going on everywhere else. And we knew carbon offsets weren't effective, right? Like
that's exhausting.
We knew that.
Yeah.
But
that's
this
the point.
ongoing discussion about what ESG metrics are, that they're not great, that they're fluffy, that they're shit, that all ESG ratings should correlate, that ESG professionals are underqualified, that ESG is a circus. Get your heads out of your asses. It's just a data set, and you can do something with it or not do something with it. Stop blaming it for all your fucking problems just because it's new.
I blame this is where I blame Malcolm Gladwell for all this because he was sort of the prince. He was the prince of like he gets a huge data set. He cherry picks one little thing to tell this asinine story about why everything happened, right? He was very good at that. But this is the new age we're in, is that we can now cherry pick one little minutia of the whole ESG industry and we can point to it as being the thing that is ruinous and the thing that is non-merit based and it's causing this and causing that, but it doesn't tell the full story. So I agree with you, Matt. Like it just irritates me because I spent years in these pay plans and I know based on an actual experience, Tariq, right? There's a lot of different ways of getting qualified for your role, right? It's not just studying ESG at Harvard in 1837, but I know for a fact that these fluffy ESG metrics represent, 0.05% of the reason why U.S. pay plans suck.
What I know for a fact is that all metrics are fluffy. When you have a situation where...
That's true, too.
When you have a situation where after the financial crisis, 1 in 4 U.S.-based companies restated their financials, when you know that auditors use thresholds. There's a paper on this by Preeti Chowdhury, Professor Chowdhury out of University of Arizona's Business School, that auditors will set black box thresholds for what is material and what isn't. When you know that the difference between a capital expense and an ongoing, or a capital improvement and an ongoing expense is a dude putting his finger in the fucking air and saying, well, we're going to call this a capital improvement because that looks better to shareholders, and we'll call that thing an ongoing expense. We know all that. All this is subjective. There's some layer of subjectivity in every data set. If you cannot get your head out of your ass and just say, we know that's true, but all data is that way, what can we use and what do we think? Then you're not doing your job, and I hate you. All right, let's do, this is the angriest show we've ever had.
Yeah, maybe we should do these early morning shows. We're all riled up.
Let's do Who Won the Week and predictions before my head pops.
I'll go first and quickly. Here's a prediction I'm going to give myself credit for. We predicted here on the show about a month ago that when Ari would kind of quit her maternity leave. And I heard some gossip from the Money Whisperer, Jesse, that Ari was actually in the office yesterday working.
That is true. Okay? Yeah, she's not a journalist.
And of course, Ari never says hello to me because I live up here in this horrible state of Maine. But she was working yesterday. I predicted that she'd come back after Labor Day, which is in like 4 days. Matt, you predicted she'd come back after National Ice Cream Sandwich Day, which is August 2nd.
Right.
So I'm going to take the victory on this one because we're close to Labor Day.
So I'm going to say that you're wrong because your little birds did not tweet that she actually worked 2 weeks ago also. She came.
Is that true?
She came in for like 3 or 4 hours.
Yesterday was almost like a proper day.
Yesterday was
sustained.
Okay, she came in for like 3.5 hours. Like 2
let's
weeks
call it
ago.
a tie then. We'll call it a tie because it's somewhere in the middle of August. Is kind of in between our predictions.
Jesse, you have a winner.
I chose parents because kids went back to school this week.
Oh yes,
that's a jaded look at the world.
I have a jaded parent that I work with every day.
My children are back in school. Now I only have like norovirus and COVID to worry about instead of
it's coming,
babysitters.
Coming on the bus. I like it.
My winner this week was proxy voting.
Oh, because people are talking about it?
Because never in the history of any time has anyone outside of governance cared about how BlackRock and Vanguard voted, but it's now in the New York fucking Post. Like, come on.
New York Post.
It was in the New York Post covering it. Like
right by an article about Don Mattingly. Yeah.
I mean, What century are you living in?
I don't know. I just thought when I think of the New York Post, I just think of his mustache.
Donald Mattingly and Wade Boggs fighting each other. Which means I think proxy voting won the week. But predictions, do we have any predictions?
I have a quick prediction. Copycat glass cliff firing at CVS. Why not fire Karen Lynch? She's only been there for a few years.
Fire all the ladies.
She's hitting 247 overall according to our metrics. There's a good democracy of influence over there. So she has no real power to keep her job. CVS's stock price has been being just as horrible as Walgreens. Get rid of her. Glass Clipper.
That'll be fun. I have one prediction to wrap us out. I'm on the Public Square mailing list, which means I get all the anti-woke product announcements. Yes.
No.
My prediction is before the end of 2023, someone launches a line of anti-woke products on a new website where they only sell products that undo anti-woke products.
Is that our next business venture?
That's our next business venture. And I predict that website will go public via SPAC inside of 6 months. That's my prediction. That's all we've got. That's your show for the week. That's Damien, the guy, and Jesse, the money whisperer. I'm your analyst hole. We are Free Float. This show is sponsored by freefloatanalytics.com. Go there, sign up. It's free for a while. It's going to get expensive. And you know what we're doing? We're going to legacy everybody into a plan for free.
It's good stuff.
So go get it now while you can. Until next week, goodbye.